Can you hear me?
Kevin, we are recording and I'm letting people in. All of your panelists are here and I've got some more people to admit.
So we're ready. All right. Hi, I'm Kevin Garrison from Change4ChangeLLC, a mentoring program in Kalamazoo where we mentor kids become successful young adults. And what we do tonight, we're working on change and continuation of a series on change. We have a good panel tonight. We don't claim to be anything special or anything different. We're just here because we care. We want to do better. We want other people to do better. If we can inspire them, or if we can give them a little encouragement, what we're doing tonight. So, without further ado, Mr.
All right. Good evening, everybody. My job here with Mr. Garrison's virtual town hall is to kind of be a facilitator. I've got some panelists I want to introduce. I'd like to hear from each of them. I want to start with a man that I've known for a long time, but he was a panelist in our first Zoom a few weeks ago, and that is Mr. Orlando James. As I think about introducing Orlando, it's a difficult introduction because he does.
Hello, how y'all doing today?
So many things. A drummer in a band in town, his own radio sports talk show. He's pretty well known in the Kentwood and the Grand Rapids, Michigan community. But my respect, as we talked about last time, because he chose to leave a position in business to go work in the schools. And it happens to be the school system that he went to and that his own kids went to, and he's having a tremendous impact in the lives of those kids and in the lives of a lot of people in our community. So it's wonderful to have my guy Orlando here with us. Talk to the people. Oh.
Hey, how y'all doing today? I'm glad to be here again and to see a couple new faces, some old faces too. I see Mike up there. But I'm just happy to be here and to hear everybody's point of view and to hear, what we can continue to do to enact some change.
Glad to have you here, our next guy, Mr. Kirk, is a longtime friend of our leader, Kevin Garrison, and he did join us last time. He had some thoughts, and I got quite a bit of feedback on some of the things that he shared. Cornelius Kirk, if you would introduce yourself a little bit and talk to us about your group, You Matter Too. Explain that to us.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. Hope everybody's doing well. So I created You Matter Too recently, I guess after COVID hit, but before that, I worked with a nonprofit called Young Men for Christ. And so we work with young Black and brown males. We also go into the public schools here at Wake County Public Schools and do workshops with students. So that's some of the work I do here locally. And I'm excited to be on the panel. You Matter, you asked me that, I'm sorry. You Matter is going to, when this is over, You Matter is going to be a part of some of the Wake County Public Schools, going into classrooms and talking to students about belief systems and their values, because I believe we can educate a person, but if they don't feel good about themselves, it doesn't matter if they get a great grade or not. So that'll be the mission there.
Thanks for that. Great to have you. I look forward to some more comments from you as our night goes along. Next one, a familiar name and face, but living in Chicago now, Michael Ferris. People that have been a part of Peak Performance, that have been a part of Kentwood Hills, a place that I teach at, we coached basketball together for 6 years. And so I've had a lot of people say, Coach Ferris, Coach Ferris. So if you get some people jump on that want to talk about their high school career and their memory, Michael Ferris impacted a lot of lives in his time here at Kentwood Hills and now working in Chicago. We just had a nice little catch-up moment with his family and his beautiful daughters. but the Director of Diversity and Inclusion for the National Office of the YMCA in Chicago, Illinois. My guy, Michael Ferris. Talk to the people, Coach.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. As Coach mentioned, Michael Ferris. Good to see so many great voices, hear so many great voices, and see so many familiar faces, and seeing the growth and development not only that is taking place within my hometown of Rapids and the impact that Orlando is having there. So very proud of your work, bro, and just really excited about being a part of this conversation with you all, and sharing a little bit of knowledge that I'm continuing to learn and adapt myself. So really excited to be learning and growing with you all tonight.
And then our last introduction, I'm going to turn it back over to our leader, Kevin Garrison, the guy, the organizer of Change for Change. Introduce Mr. Ogden. Kevin introduced him to me, even though we've never met, by giving me a copy of your book. So Marcus Ogden, great to have you here. Kevin, tell the people a little bit about Mr. Ogden.
Sure. So, yeah, great book. Actually, I just got the audio version of the book, so I'm about halfway through it. But great. Former NFL football player, now a keynote speaker, a good person, great person, coach, and a good friend, Mr. Marcus Ogden.
How you doing, Kevin? Thanks for having me. My name is Marcus Ogden. I'm a former NFL athlete. I currently live in the Cary, North Carolina area. Wake County public school system is what my wife, it's the school system that my daughter goes to as well, Green Hope High School. And I'm here just to kind of add some value to the panel and talk about ways to really embark upon healthy culture and change to bring about better people in our society, to try and make a better world that we can live in today for everybody.
Thank you, sir. Great to have you here. Sorry if I appear distracted. I'm admitting people to the Zoom as we join. And I'm going to try one other thing that might be the height of my technology experience. So let's try. I'm going to try and share my screen and give you a quote that we've shared that is kind of the jumping off point for a continuation of what we talked about last time, and then to catch some other people up. If I can successfully share my screen. Obviously an icon in the civil rights movement, Rosa Parks, but I thought this was a great quote for this because it mentions the word change. And it also has kind of a connotation of not just first steps, but next steps. To bring about change, must not be afraid to take the first step. I'd say the first step would be at least having this conversation. My question for the panel, I'm going to start with Mr. Kirk in North Carolina. If joining us last time was the first step, in the broader sense, what are the next steps that you would like to see us make in our communities regarding change?
Sorry about that. So in my opinion, at the highest level, for us to do what we need to do, the policies have to change. They just do. When we talk about fairness for people, we can't have policies that don't support things that are the way they are in 2020. So things have changed, let's just say in the last 20 years. Even if the policy was put in place 20 years ago, we have to revisit it because things are changing that fast. So I would first start with policy, and then I would jump into some training, because the people that are in charge may have been there for a lot of years and done it a certain way. But if it's not fair, it's something we need to change. So that's where I would start.
Michael Ferris, agree with that or add on to that?
Yeah, I agree with Cornelius. I think that, we have to look at the policies, systemic issues that arise even in, our educational system, even in the nonprofit sector, how all of our systems are connected, and how bias institutional racism. All of those things are inherent in those spaces. And so I think it takes a lot more of educational opportunities for all of us to unlearn those ideologies and come to some common understanding of even building into what we frame and define regarding institutional unconscious bias or institutional systemic racism, so that we all have some shared common knowledge and understanding. It's too many of us that are speaking different languages when trying to address change, and we're not on the same wavelength in that common knowledge and understanding piece.
Mr. Ogden, I wonder if your mind is going the way when they start talking about change and first steps, that has a connotation of getting the ball rolling. It makes me think of some things that were mentioned in your book, the success cycle. Do you see parallels is not the right word, but it kind of flows naturally into the premise of your book, correct?
Absolutely, Todd. And I think and I agree with both of the gentlemen, Michael and with Cornelius, it's got to start with the policy, but at the same time, it has to start with getting people into the seats that can bring diversity, not just diversity of skin tone, but diversity of thought process, of experience, and really talking about bringing about change and bringing diversity to the table to really help people understand that everybody has a different perspective. And the only way you can really bring change and make it really become long-lasting and effective is if you have people from multicultural experiences, backgrounds, thought process. I talk about in my book, having a servant leadership mentality where you're able to be an individual who can serve people and have the leadership where they're going to follow you because they want to do it, not because you ask them to do it. And that's a huge difference. So I think it's going to be policy, but also it's got to be individuals and people like yourself, like Kevin, like the rest of the panel that are going to be out there on these boards, in these places, in these discussions, bringing different viewpoints and perspectives and experiences to really bring about some systemic change that will just be long lasting and not just being motivated for the short term, but being inspired, make a real long lasting change.
Sorry for that delay as I unmute myself, but I'm scribbling that down. Tell the people, we've never talked. I didn't tell you to do that, but when you said servant leadership, oh my goodness, does that flow into what I'm talking about with Orlando? Excuse me, I got to admit someone. But that's kind of, whenever I tell people about my friend Orlando James, the idea of servant leadership, his is probably more dramatic than what most of us will do. When you talk about, I want change, I want to see policies changed. Orlando had some frustrations with the school system and decided to go work in that. That's the epitome of servant leadership. Mr. Ogden, you write another book, you got to get a hold of my friend Orlando and put a chapter about him. Oh, talk to people. It's not going to be as dramatic as you quitting a job, leaving a job, starting a new profession. But what are some realities that people can do to servant leadership, Mr. Ogden says, but to enact changes in policies that Cornelius and Michael are mentioning? I'm going to mute myself. Orlando?
I think the best thing that we can do is to get involved. We kind of talked about that last time, but very rarely do we actually do it. Sometimes, and this is coming from an educational side of things. The school will send home things saying, what would you all like to see? What would you all like to have done? And if you don't respond, then you don't get anything that you're interested in. And if you're not interested in anything, then you never get involved. I think the biggest thing is for people to get involved in everything that's going on and start trying to lend more of your voice to what you want to see done, because